y'all, this is Kat. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the rear derailleur hanger, and shifter cable on the Specialized Pitch. This Specialized Pitch is actually the Riding4Focus version, so it's not readily available to the public. It's got a 1x9 drivetrain system, so the derailleur that we're placing is actually a 9-speed Shimano Altus. So as you can tell, you see how the derailleur is bent out like that? That is not good. Things happen though. It wasn't necessarily the kid's fault in this instance, but it does happen. So we kind of got lucky and the kid didn't continue pedaling, so he did not break the chain, because that's possible too. So first step you want to do, if you don't already have some of these are wolf tooth component pliers. They're really handy. It's one of my favorite tools. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find your quick link in your chain, and you're going to break the chain. You could break the chain using a regular chain tool, but I can easily and readily see this quick link right here, so we are going to roll with that since I have this handy dandy tool. Alright, so this is how this wolf tooth thing works. Spread apart the pliers right here. If you see right here, there is a magnet and convenient place to store extra quick links, but you're gonna spread them just like this. You're gonna fit them in between the links that are to the outside of the quick link, and you're just gonna squeeze them together. And then that should release it. I'm going to just loosen this up right here. You could also snap it with a cable cutter, but I'm just going to loosen it up so that it frees up that cable. Okay, now you're going to take the housing of it right up here at the top too. Take that out. Okay, so that's free now. Now you're going to take off the derailleur. All right, take your 5mm Allen wrench and you're going to put it right in here. Take that 5mm Allen wrench and you're going to put it right in there where the hanger and the derailleur are attached to one another, right in there. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. Check to make sure your hanger is okay, all right? Your hanger should generally be straight. If you're standing right back behind it, just like I am, you can tell the derailleur hanger, which is this little cheap piece right here, it's meant to be replaced. It's going to be bent in slightly that way. Your derailleur is not going to align properly in your gears if this thing is bent. But this is a $22 piece. It's not that expensive. Hangers are kind of meant to, be destroyed eventually, so no big deal there. So you're going to actually need to take your wheel off for this one. So you got a bolt right there. That's going to attach that derailleur hanger to your bike frame into your dropout. See how that's aligned with the dropout right there? Notice how the hanger goes on the inside right here, but the bolt goes on the outside. So you're still going to use that 5mm Allen wrench, but pro tip, just in case you do need to replace the entire hanger right here, which is not a big deal, keep this bolt just in case your new derailleur hanger does not come with that bolt. So we're going to go ahead and put our new hanger on. Just like our old one was on the inside, we're going to put it on the inside right here. And we're going to take this bolt. Bolt goes on the outside, just like this. Again, difficult to do one-handed or two-handed, but with a camera in my armpit. All right, hanger on there. Stand back here and notice how the hanger is now nice and straight. All right, once your derailleur hanger is on right there, you see this big hole right here? This bolt right here is going to screw into that, okay? Alright, righty tighty to tighten that down. So, you now have a new derailleur on here. The cable end isn't frayed or anything like that. There's a few kind of nicks and scrapes on my cable housing, but it's really not in that bad a shape. If there were anything was exposed in the housing where you could see any of the wires on the inside or anything like that, any holes, then you would definitely want to replace the housing. If you are familiar with this bike, you can tell that all of this is housed and then it goes into a hole right there in the frame, okay? That means that this is internally housed. It's a good thing actually. So the housing is in the frame right here and then it pops back out right here. So that's a good thing. It's a great bike, but when it comes to changing out the cables and the housing, it can be a little bit more tedious. So, but with our cable housing not being kinked, not being too worn or anything, we're gonna leave this the way it is and just replace the shifter cable. This is off now. We're going to take this apart, see what's inside, and see if we can't pretty quickly and easily replace this shifter cable. To take apart this shifter and replace the cable, sorry I didn't get this on film because it's really hard for me to hold the camera and do this at the same time. But on the underside of the shifter right here, you have 3 screws. All right, this is what those things look like, okay? And if you notice, they are different sizes. You have a teeny weeny tiny one, you have kind of a medium one, and then you have a really, really long one. It is important to note how those are oriented in your shifter because they will need to go back. So once you take those screws out on this side, you can flip it over and the cover right here can just pop right off. You can actually see the mechanism inside. Pretty cool, right? So, same thing as I teach just about anyone, especially kids when working on bikes. Your first thing about taking apart bikes is just noticing things, okay? I'm not by any means an expert mechanic, but I am pretty good at kind of taking notes mentally, or just taking pictures, video if you need to, about how everything is oriented on the inside of this shifter. So the shifter cable is coming in through here, all right? That part's going to be housed, and then it comes down around, and you see the shifter end right here. So the stopper end is going to go in that hole. So we're going to thread it using the non-stopper end. And sometimes I bend the end of it right there, just ever so slightly, just to kind of help it through. So we're going to go in like this, and see how I bent it, and it goes almost right in there through that hole in the screw. There we go. Okay, and just keep threading. All right, so looks like it should be threaded about the same way that I got it out, right? So now you're just going to put the cap back on. Once you've got that replaced, next step is to start putting your stuff back on here. Again, like I say to my kids, just kind of noticing how things are oriented. So the shifter was on here first. First is in towards the stem, and then the brake lever was on next. So sometimes it can be kind of hard to do this in the stand, but you want to line up your brake levers, make this one as even as possible to this one. If it's not, no big deal. You can loosen it back up. When it's out of the stand, make sure it is where you want your hand positions to be. Once you have your grip, your brake lever, and your shifter mounted back onto your handlebars in the way that you like, you should have your cable right here, and then your housing, which is still internally housed through the frame right here. Okay, so you're going to take the end of this cable and you're just going to start stuffing it down into this housing. Now, something important to note is making sure none of these are kind of crisscrossed while you're doing this. Okay, the housing is going to come up through the frame and connect right in through here, so make sure this isn't going up underneath any of the other cables. And get it pretty close right in there. All right, I think I heard something fall off back here. Yeah, my end cap fell off, so I'll have to put another one back on, but you can see how it's come up through the housing. Found my end cap. I can just put it right back on, no big deal. Put that back on there. Okay, so I have a little bit left and that's exposed up there, so I'm just going to pull it tight through the end. Now, when you're doing this, you see how this end is not flush into the barrel adjuster? You want to make sure it sits right in there where it's supposed to. Make sense? Sit right in there. Now I'm going to go back to the back again and then pull it through. Make it nice and tight. All right, that should be good and tight now. So this end is going to go through this one. So you're going to thread that through here. Okay, again pulling it tight, making sure this end cap right there sits up like that, nice and flush as best as possible. Alright, so once you've threaded your housing and cable through this barrel adjuster right here, you're going to actually screw it into this bolt. So there's a bracket right there, little lip in this particular instance, and in this case you want to make sure that that is in the up position. If you're working with a different derailleur, it might be in a different position, but for this sunlight replacement, it's going to actually be right there. So that's going to create a little hole in there. See how that's threaded through there? A little hole. I'm gonna tighten that down now. Alright, so just to test it out, you can go ahead and probably start shifting. Just kind of messing with the shifters. If your derailleur moves, then you're at least on the right track. You got some tension and things are starting to work properly. Not quite there yet though. So once that's in place, we're going to thread our chain back on. Obviously, if you should notice something about bikes, the chain is going to go through our crank right here, our chain ring. No front derailleur, but I do have a little chain guide right there, and it's going to go through there. And then when it comes to being put on back here, I like to put my shifter in my highest gear, which is my hardest gear, in this instance a 9. I like to do that to give a little slack, okay? If I'm trying to put the chain on in my biggest chain ring right here, my gear 1, it's going to be a little bit tighter, okay? So the way that I like to remember this and orient this, so a derailleur should be in the down position for the most part, all right? So if you notice, there's a cage on here. Again, just noticing things. If the derailleur's in this down position right here, this top jockey wheel, it's gonna go in front of the front wheel and behind the rear wheel. And there's little guides in there that make it make sense. There's a bracket right there, makes sense to go behind the bracket, makes sense to go in front of this bracket. You wouldn't want your chain out here behind the bracket, you would want it in. So in front of the front jockey wheel, behind the rear jockey wheel. So this is another pair of my favorite tools. These are some Park Tool cable cutters. These are lifesavers. I'd invest in some of these if I were y'all. We're gonna snap that cable and kind of bend it, and that's pretty much it. You might need to tune the derailleur. We're gonna save that for another video though. I leave mine a little long just in case I messed anything up. So while I get ready to tune, I'm gonna take it and kind of bend it out of my way.